This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by the Lost Market of Carcosa. The King in Yellow opens his tattered mantle once again on Friday, December 5th, 5 to 9 p.m., and Saturday, December 6th, 11 to 4 p.m. at 318 McDermott.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how a genre gets made. I am suffering without my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry, but he is suffering, I believe, a plumbing disaster right now. So his assistant reached out to me to let me know that he was needed elsewhere at the very last second. So pinch hitting for him is long, sometimes suffering co-host, sometimes mediocre producer on the show, Lyndon Redchenka. How you doing, Lyndon?
Is Justin coming at all? Like, am I just keeping the seat warm until he arrives?
I don't know.
Okay. Dear listener, stay tuned.
Yeah.
Gregory, did you hear my hosting in the last Super Pulp Science
I haven't
episode?
listened to it yet. I assume you made fun of me viciously.
I don't think I made fun of you at all. I think I got the mannerisms down.
Yeah.
You got it down? I look forward to listening to
Dan
it.
said good job. He never says good job to me.
Oh,
Producer extraordinaire
I should do that more often.
Producer extraordinaire Dan said to you that you did a good job.
That's right. Isn't that a rare occurrence?
I can probably count in the last 100 episodes on one hand the number of times we got an attaboy from him.
That's right.
Yeah, I'll try and do that. I don't feel bad if you're not doing that more.
No, but I wonder if it's better. If you just do it because we want it.
Yeah, it's no good.
It's not.
I only do it when I mean it.
That defeats the dad energy, Dan. You've got big dad energy.
Yeah, thank you.
With reluctant attaboys.
Oh my goodness.
Oh boy.
Welcome to another episode of Older Men Don't Get Therapy. They just start podcasts, right? It's one of those, it seems, clearly. I have been away from the show a little while, and there's been a bunch of twists and turns in my life for the dear listener. And I'm just struggling now with the moment of how to make the conversation constructive and useful to the listener rather than just a laundry list of places I went and weird experiences I had. So what if we frame it, this following GMB Kamichuk update, around the ways in which one thing leads to another that you didn't expect in this business. And I will bring that up by giving a shout out to Kevin, our mentee at the studio, who is from Red River. He's at the Red River program.
Okay.
And when I had one of these misadventures, one of these events I was at, which is very, as Justin pointed out, quite off-brand, he felt, for me. I did 4 days at the Grey Cup Festival, right? It overlapped.
What's the Grey Cup
Yeah,
Festival,
tell me what the
Gregory?
Grey Cup is, just in case you don't know what the Grey Cup is.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. It's football related, and some millionaires chase around a ball, and then one of them catches the ball.
I don't think they're millionaires, not in the CFL.
No,
they're definitely
100,000-aires.
Oh, okay.
like at max.
So some well-to-do, hardworking athletes fight really hard, and then they are given a big cup.
Yes.
If they sport harder than the other team sports,
Yes.
right? If they give 110%, they're awarded
If it's
cup.
if it's a Canadian Super Bowl, basically, it's the equivalent to the American Super Bowl.
Oh,
It's like the big football game.
not the superb owl. That's
No.
something else.
Yes.
Yes. This is just a long-running, painful joke to all football fans. I'm so sorry. It's not that I don't think that the people who are in professional sports are not professional and have struggled and worked really hard to get there. I just find often that the culture surrounding it attracts a kind of oil-water mixture with my personality, and so I usually avoid
I agree.
those kind of things, right? I think in my very misspent youth, I was on a rugby team. I got bloodied and battered and smashed and kicked, and I was bad at it, and it's really hard to play a sport seriously. I get it. And I couldn't possibly understand the lengths at which those people go. However, the lengths at which their fans go to have only one facet of their personality for 4 days made me wonder.
Comic-Con?
That's what I was going to say. So this is one of those interesting things. So just before I did this Grey Cup event, I had also done the punk rock flea market. And before that, I'd done a Comic-Con. And so I had these sort of 3 stacked experiences of very niche. I kept texting Tara. I kept texting her to say, like, the demographics are so pure in these 3 places. But the people are more or less all the same. So I thought. And then after the 3rd day of the Grey Cup related event, I had to like adjust my margins to be like, there's something far more aggressive and angry and like hurt feelings around football fandom. And I say this as a non-scientific study. The people who are celebrating comics fandom, there is toxicity in there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
People who are in the punk rock community, the DIY community, there is some toxicity in there for sure. But the way in which a complete stranger will level it at me seemed totally unfiltered at the sporting event. I'm not quite certain as to the constituent elements there, but so if you have any insight, dear listeners, please let me know.
Can you tell us what the event was specifically? It was a part of the Grey Cup. Grey Cup was here in Winnipeg.
Yes.
So they had this 4 days leading up to the game. So was it like a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? Or,
yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Okay. And so the game was on
all
Sunday.
4 days, and what they had done is turned a rec center, Axworthy Rec Center, this big complex at the U of W, into actually, this part I actually adored. It was so cool. They made all of these super kid-friendly, super like casual, filthy casuals friendly, football-related obstacle courses and feats of skill and tests of daring. That
Did you do the obstacle course?
No, I was too busy doing my actual job, but watching other people really enjoy those parts of it.
Yeah.
That was really great. And the number of kids that came to just for the pure joy of being active, also really great. That was fun to watch. And that's in service of that. And this is how I got involved. Some of the organizers of the event had hired Fet Jockey, which is a event organizing group here in Winnipeg, which is co-owned and co-run by Andreas Sartison, who directed Red Earth. And so I have long ago learned that anytime Andrea phones me to say, hey, I got a thing I think you'd be good for, just say yes. I just say yes. I don't even think twice about whether I know she's thought twice, maybe thrice, even 5 times about it. And so that's why she's called me. And so I just say yes. And one day I found myself, overnight in a park. And another time I found myself on a stage with dancers, not dancing, dear listener, I promise, but drawing on a huge projection screen in the middle of this. And another time I found myself in a Ray Bradbury play production, and like all these different fun adventures. Whenever the phone rings in, it's Andrea. So when I got the phone call that said, come to the Grey Cup thing, I said, yes, as you want to do. And what I did was I designed a poster in a 40s style, a football star poster and a cheerleading poster at the direction of the event. That's the 2 things they wanted. Mm-hmm. And I left the place where you could put someone's caricature blank in the composition, and then I would draw it in as people came. So kids and moms and dads could come and have themselves depicted as a football star or an incredible backflipping athlete. The number of questions I got related leading up to it as to whether or not there should be a strict gender role in either of the compositions, and the amount that did not matter even one bit to the attendees. Everyone wanted to be everything, and it was so cool. Mm-hmm. So that's how I ended up there. And so I was drawing all these caricatures and drawing people's faces like nonstop. And I did some amazing drawings the day after those 4 days. I spent another 6 hours drawing faces for a project with Lyndon because I had all those skills I needed for just straight drawing. So that's why I was there.
Drawing for me?
Yes.
What?
Yes, I know. It's strange. But Lennon and I have a project that has been very slow in the percolation, and it requires a lot of...
Talked about it numerous times
Yes.
also. Yeah.
It's required a lot of raw drawing. And so I was feeling top of my game. Even though I was so exhausted after 40 hours at Grey Cup related events, I was still like, no, now I can draw robots.
27-20. Tomlin, what a player on that last drive. Amazing, Jack. That's right, they're all very...
Let me emphasize that.
In the comparison of these three events, I want to be clear in saying that I think people are the same everywhere, more or less. But certain activities bring out certain other activities. And in this case, I can be very specific. The people I had the hardest time with at the Grey Cup event had been drinking too much. So
And that's
they were,
the other thing that goes with football, right? Is alcohol,
right.
and that's
Yeah.
that's a problem.
They had just been drinking too much, and it wasn't their best selves that were on display.
At a family event?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're drunk all weekend,
Oh.
pretty much. But they are absolutely people who do this. Like I have experience, not directly, but working in mainstream news as I have. It's a huge deal, and they all like just go nuts for it. And so yeah, they just spend the entire weekend trashed, even with the kids.
Yes.
This is unfortunate because those kids will probably grow up and do the same thing.
I had a really amazing moment where this dad who hadn't seen his kids in a long time, and he went on as to the reasons, but those are his reasons. That's his business. But one thing that was really awesome is he had his favorite photos of each of the four kids, and he wanted me to draw them in the different things, right? And I wondered if they were a gift for him. And it was, it's quite sad in a way because he was like, no, these are for me. I just want to think of them this way, right? And it's clear that he did not have a great relationship with his family, but they were on his mind, and he was a little, he had drunk to remember rather than to forget. And so we had a real heart-to-heart, a real tearful heart-to-heart while I drew his kids for him. And, art can find you in some strange places sometimes. So the next strange place my art is going to take me is going to be the lost market of Carcosa. Friends of the podcast will know, of course, the King in Yellow and the H.P. Lovecraft connection to the market of Carcosa, or perhaps you don't. But the idea here being that it's so strange and niche that I just had to be there. I saw a poster for it. I asked the organizer, what is this? The poster had a huge, leathery faced skull featured monstrosity gazing out from under the edge of his hood. And it was the opposite of like a Comic-Con or a book market or any of these kinds of things. And it just said something like oddities and curiosities. And, and so I'll be there.
When is that?
It's December 5th and 6th. I'm only there on the Friday.
Do I have to follow a series of clues to get there?
I hope so. No. What's also
No sign up
interesting,
for it.
the weird things that the weird connections for me here is that the market is in the building that is the same building as the Portage and Main Press. And so in two these strange extraneous ways, other projects and other things are bringing me round back to these other interests of mine, which seem unrelated most of the time. And, I had mentioned Kevin, our intern. The reason I gave him a shout out is that I told him, I can't meet at a regular time. Find me at the Grey Cup thing and we'll have our meeting there. And I didn't give him any other instruction, right? I'm there from this time to this time. Find me and you can have your class. Otherwise, right? Otherwise it's canceled. And people say a lot of things about the younger generations. This is a fella up for an adventure, and he brought his assignments, the work he'd been doing on a query letter system related to a book project of his. And while I was sketching people as football stars, he was reading to me his breakdown and basically showing and proving all the work that he had done, that he was required to do, and coming to a weird place at a weird time, which was not planned. And he looked at me and he's like, so this is what this job is like, right? This is the lesson. right? Like sometimes it's not the way you planned. I was like, you get it exactly. So, and there were so many people who were at the event who saw the banner, who recognized it from Comic-Con or other places, and gave me such a quizzical look, gentlemen, like so puzzled. And one mother, well, she's like, yeah, like, I guess you can draw my kids, but like, and she leaned in close. She's like, aren't you above this?
Oh, wow.
And I thought I had such a moment of like, no, but why do you think, like, what is there above or below? Like, why is me drawing your kid for your joy and edification any different than you buying a picture from me at a different event? Like, it's so weird, right? It was such a weird thing. So I'm going to pontificate on this idea of where you're supposed to be in the eyes of the public versus where you are.
It's nice to know that when we're exhibiting at a convention, we're not considered to be sideshow acts. Even though if you look behind the scenes, most of what we are doing is a sideshow act.
Definitely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. And I also got a lot of feedback on how nice my display was, which is, it speaks to that. I'm used to setting up a nice public thing. They said, I made some backdrops, I made some postering for the event, and I had a nice way to display it, and all this kind of pomp and circumstance that you and I take for granted as like the only way you can do it, because as a busy event, you're trying to get people's attention. And the number of people who were like, okay, so like you can do this football thing or this acrobat like cheerleader thing, but like on the backdrop there are these robots and these vampires, and like, can I be a monster? Right? And I was expressly told by event organizers, right, you got to keep it sports themed. You can't bring up your other, because I kept saying, they could be a sports star or a monster. I was doing in my pitching, and they're like, no, they can be sports stars. But I realized that if they asked the dealer, right?
What are you supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do? So I drew a couple of...
Give the people what they want.
So some of them were like football players with bat wings and huge monstrous teeth, because that's what they wanted. And the kids thought it was the coolest thing. So it's such a weird like moment in a reaction from a person who believes that the only reason that we would be making art is to somehow rise above the common task of actually making art for people. It was weird to me, that comment. It's bothered me. I think I'm bringing it up because...
Yeah, maybe it's because a person who draws caricatures is like it's almost like a busker. It's almost like a person who's like has to make, you're doing it to make extra money or something like that.
Right,
It's
right.
like, it's not like like you would spend more intense time working on one of your pieces of art,
Totally,
stuff, and you put more effort into it. So this is like not as serious art as that, maybe.
When I traveled to Florence, we stayed in the back of an artist's studio. He was a full-time working artist, and he sold art on the streets. Like, he did his pieces, and I think he was a tutor or a teacher also. And then on the weekends, he would go out into the busy streets of the tourist corners and sell his paintings.
Do you think that it's because from the public's perception, the layperson's perception, the life of an artist contains no drudgery? Like, in your regular life, you have so much drudgery, and you assume that if a person is an artist, they're free of that drudgery. But like, all life has drudgery.
What's drudgery about the sports thing, though? About the football?
Well,
drudgery?
It's 10 hours.
Oh, I guess so.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
It's 10 hours of work, right? Where I'm working for someone else, being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, and why to do it. And, they paid me handsomely for my time.
Next time you'll turn to them and you'll say, I go where the people want art.
And they'll be monsters, damn it.
And here you are.
No, it was really fun. It was,
buying my art.
there were parts of it that were really fun, and there were parts of it that were really peculiar. And if we only do what's always in our comfort zone, how can you ever grow? Like, I'll tell you right now, doing 150 caricatures a day makes you sharp at drawing people,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can't imagine. The other thing about caricature, dear listener. Don't say it too fast. It's the worst. You can't imagine anything. There's nothing to imagine. You have to have your hand only render what is present and not imagined. Whereas when you're drawing for fun, you can imagine all kinds of things and you can change anything you want. But you can't say to yourself, oh, the way to make this person look, quote, better is to do this to them. No, that's their face. The face as presented is what you have to try to render in as few lines as possible. And it's like this incredible puzzle every time. You have to kind of go no mind about it and just like not see it as a face, but just as a series of marks and lines and values and just like render it as quickly as possible. Because, you know, obviously people only have so much attention.
Sprechen Sie any German?
Ja. Porsche, Audi, Farfennugan.
One of the ways I looked at it is my wife also was like, that's a weird thing for you to do. And I said, well, essentially I get a drawing in a forced drawing studio, live drawing event where I have to be good and be right in the zone the whole time, which is a effort of will. And I'll be so much better by the end of that, right? Draw faces for 40 hours straight. And I bet you'll be good at drawing faces, especially kids who don't stand still.
Don't maintain their expression.
That's right. Well, no, the funny thing is everyone would make these poses like the most serious, right? Like they had seen, I guess, some, or
Like
they had
with the pitchfork?
kind of.
What is that, American Gothic?
Yeah, American
Gothic pose. Everyone would take a super serious thing. And so I could render all their features seriously, but I have to leave their mouth till the end and then say something dumb so I could see the crease that their actual face made when they smiled.
Yeah.
Because then it's a fun drawing, right?
Yeah.
And you have to develop a certain pattern to get people to like feel comfortable. And, you know, one of the things that I did, and I don't know if this is of use to the dear listener, but one of the ways, if you're going to draw somebody, don't have them look at you while you look at them. So I created a composition so that the pose was slightly turned about 30 degrees so that they could be the object of my intense stare, but not have to look back at it, which is really good for kids because they can't handle that, right? And adults also, frankly, some of them can't handle that. And I think after 3 beers, you can't handle it either. That became very clear.
With that one guy.
People were really, no, not just one guy. I would see the sweat begin to glisten on the idea that a stranger is staring.
They were serving alcohol at the event? They must have been.
Outside the event.
Oh, okay.
Right
like
outside.
a tailgate thing, maybe.
No, there was like a beer garden or whatever
okay.
outside. Yeah. I did not go in.
No.
But I did see the people coming out. Let's put it that way. So comics takes you to weird places.
Did this foray inspire you to get into sports anywhere?
No, but it did.
Fencing?
I mean, I used to fence a lot, and I found my old fencing gear because we need to. It's a different story. But no and yes. I realized that there is a really useful, I don't know how, I don't know where, I don't know in what capacity, but the fervor in which people blindly support their team was fascinating to me, and I'm going to use those elements in something. And also, people really dug it when instead of drawing, like as a warm-up, sometimes between people, I would render the face and elements in the body as robotic. I would just like draw so that I could basically use a different shape language and just shake that part of my brain before I would go back into the smooth lines that are often accompanying a face. But people were so into the robot drawings that they'd also ask to take those away. And so like there's a subset of some football robot android story that I think could reach that demographic really
we
well.
Should story break it.
Right?
With when Justin comes back. He'd hate it if we did it without him.
Yes. Some kind of robot sport thing.
With artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Moving into a human space.
Yeah, of course.
Welcomed with open arms.
Yeah. And not like those BattleBot things that we see at Comic-Con sometimes where just like buzzsaws or smashing tiny little robots, but like real humanoid sports.
You know, based on the trends in the news, people really love it when new bodies enter the sports field that have not traditionally participated in those fields. They love it.
Yeah,
The news loves it.
It's welcomed quite warmly.
Yeah.
I would say. Yes. Yeah. So, dear listener, this is what I have to say about that before we expand the conversation is if you have a certain set of skills and people see them as valuable, it's okay to allow how they see your skills to be how you use them. That was answering that phone call, right? It wasn't, oh, this event is perfect for all the monsters and robots and speculative fiction stuff you do. This event is good for someone who likes people and is good at drawing people. So we thought of you right away. And your body of work that has come before does not define how you're going to use those skills forever. And it's good to try other stuff. Do I want to do these kinds of events all the time? No. Am I thrilled I did it? Yes. Did I learn something? Totally. Did I see a different section of humanity than I'm used to seeing on a day-to-day basis? Yes.
Sort of.
But as a writer, that's really important, right? As a creator, it's really important to not just be like, oh, people are only the way I see them in my mind. You have to see them as they are in the world, doing the things that they like doing, you know? And the number of kids that were just absolutely delighted. These are young kids, like they would, some of these, the ones I'm thinking of anyway, they're like between 9 and 10 years old. But the football body that was drawn is like a big 40s style, 50s style football, full-grown man. And so their face in that, in the body of that scale, I could see these little like fireworks going off. And one time a mother cried. Right? She's like, I'm not ready to see my son this big. Now, had she come from the beer garden? I don't know. What I do know is that there was this interesting juxtaposition of the features of the child they know added to a full-grown person, right? They're here to experience a fun thing with their kid, and now they saw them for a moment all grown up, and it was not my intention at all. So it's like those little things that become like a grain of something. And I wrote down some of those interactions in my notebook because they made me feel something. And so as a writer, I don't know how I'll use the things that made me feel something, but I know when I'm looking in a story, there's often a gap. We talk about this. Lyndon's actually really good at this. It comes naturally to him to put the human element into the story first. I often go back and add it later. And so when I'm feeling a lack of some real humanity, I'll go looking through those notebooks for those interactions and those people and those moments and you know, gather some of those ingredients.
It all makes sense. This guy was a Lego set of body parts. The Baron must have found something to hold them all together. That's what Liv was after.
Look, I just want to take knees for the Lakers. I don't want to play Dawn of the Dead with you.
Come on, Jay. Where's your sense of adventure?
It's way behind my desire to graduate.
Let's pivot to how the perception of where I'm supposed to be at the age I'm supposed to be was presented by that woman, right? To an article that you just shared from a 2020 wizard. I think this is really insightful. And if you're willing, I think we should chat about it a little bit, because where you're supposed to be in your career is something that people often ask me when I go to speak at schools or speaking public events. Like, how do I know I've made it? And what are the indicators of those success and whatever? And I have lots of pithy answers, but Lyndon found a very sobering fact today that I think is good to look at. So if you're thinking about a life in comics, lay it on us, Lyndon.
Be a writer.
Yeah. Now, what is the proof? Give us the receipt.
So the what we found today, again, on the internet, unsourced, unverified, but looking semi-legitimate, was an article from Wizard Magazine in 2000.
It looks legitimate to me. I used to collect Wizard Magazine. That looks right.
It has it's photos and names of the top 10 writers and artists in the comic space based on, according to Wizard, a nationwide retailer survey. And the artist list includes, they say, pencilers and painters. I'm assuming 2000. Gregory, what did the digital art landscape look like at that time?
Yeah, the reason they're including painters is because Alex Ross is on that list.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
just
the
wonder.
digital-
I have to assume at that point the majority of art is still hand drawn.
2020?
2000.
2000?
Yeah.
Yeah. It definitely still hand-drawn. The beginnings of that digital revolution are on the horizon, but they've not been adopted nationwide yet.
We were looking at this list, and the 10 writers who are listed there are still charting in comics today, which is 25 years later. And, I've lamented in the past on this show about how the writing, the big two or mainstream comics writing landscape is dominated by the same names as always. And this is sort of confirmation of that, in that I don't know if you want to get it, if you want me to read the whole list of names here, Gregory, but
I'd say just hit it fast.
Well, it's Alan. I'm just going to go through some of the bigger names here still. Alan Moore, Mark Waid, Garth Ennis, Dan Jurgens, Warren Ellis, Chris Claremont, Jeff Loeb, Straczynski. All of those guys are still charting at major publishers.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. Or they have gone on to write for film, television, movies, own their own IP, develop their own publishers. They are still very much foundational members of the comics community.
But when we flip over to artists, which, of course, there are names here, Alex Ross, Michael Turner, George Perez, J. Scott Campbell, Adam Kubert, Joe Quesada, John Romita Jr. is here, Salvador LaRocca is here. A lot of these names are still in the industry, but they're not necessarily doing art anymore.
Yeah, like two of them for sure. Quesada became editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. Kubert started, he's part of the Kubert School. They have their own, they became essentially art administrators rather than ink slingers.
A couple passed away.
A few have passed away, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, I wonder, also indicative of the lifestyle.
Right. Yeah, there's no health, as they say, there's no health benefits in comics.
Yeah.
Marvel does not have a benefits plan?
No.
They're all freelancers.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about any publisher, it's not responsible for your physical well-being.
No.
Right?
No.
Should they be? I don't know. Yeah, I guess it depends on your point of view. See, in Canada, I say no, the publisher is not responsible because I do know there's a social safety net here in Canada, so I would say no. In America, I think the employer maybe should have some responsibility. Maybe that's naive of me to think that if you're going to give your entire life to a company, they should look out for the life that you've entrusted to them.
What about the government being responsible, like it is here?
Like I said, we're in Canada.
Right.
Yes, we're in Canada. And we won't turn this into a political podcast. In fact, I stepped over the well-founded allegations of Warren Ellis while we shot through that list, but maybe bears mentioning. Do you think, then, that this is a good indicator for you as a writer of comics, that you can have a long and healthy career on the backs of your artists that you're working with?
On the backs, I mean. Having not put any thought into this answer prior to it just being asked, I think that it's not applicable because those writers and sort of the biggest writers, how do I explain this? The pool of people who want to be comic book writers is massive.
Mm-hmm.
I would actually argue it's larger than the pool of people who want to be comic book artists. And so there is so much more competition for those storied positions that there's no point in me putting any thought into comparing myself to them.
Right. Yeah. It's not
It's just a waste of my time.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's true. It is, most certainly is that. In my time running a comic book store back in my misspent youth, Wizard Magazine was a real tastemaker. It was a real part of the industry. And yes, dear listener, those of you who are in the know, I know how much of it was hype machine and how much of it was real. I'm well aware of all of those constituent parts, but we're not going to make that part of this conversation. What I will say is that the perception of how your life would change and become marvelous if you could just, quote unquote, break in, was part of the mythology constantly expressed in mediums surrounding comics and is still there today. And if you spend even a half an hour on TikTok around comics, you'll find nothing but dream smoke and no real talk about, oh, well, put in 40 hours of work this week drawing and maybe you'll be good enough to be published, but only maybe. You know, no one that doesn't make for a real inspiring 10-second reel, right? Did you work super hard today? No? Then go away. It's not a very, right, meme-worthy bit of dream smoke. So, yeah.
They would actually take like 60 seconds to say that in a real reel, an actual reel, because they need you sucked in.
Right. Yeah. So platform, publisher, perception, all of these things tie back to that woman looking at me and asking if I'm better than this. Aren't I above this?
But Gregory, how does this tie into your perception of where you should be in your career?
My perception is every day you should have a day you were glad to have. And some of it contains drudgery. And working hard is good for you. And just to be like Calvin's dad, it will build character to do parts of the job that are not glamorous. Fame is a mask that eats the face, and glamour can only exist if envy is a social norm. And that's not me. That's Thomas Berger.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Speaking of putting the work in.
Thomas? Jack? Berger's the last name.
Karen?
No, it's not Karen. Although that brings us right back to comics. Now I have to look it up.
Speaking of putting the work
Only
in,
had a producer to look these
had
whatever. I'm busy.
a wonderful weekend at the writing retreat that neither one of you joined me on.
Yeah, sorry.
Gregory.
Well, okay. You're gonna call me out?
Justin and I had a wonderful time with my wife, Gabby.
And I stayed close to home because my dad was in the hospital.
Yeah, no, you had a good reason.
Give me a
That's
break.
fine. That's
All right?
fair.
Give me a break.
But I did go. We put in work. Things got made. You have to do that.
Yeah, you do have to do
That's
that.
part of the career.
Yeah. And the retreat in this case means long bout of workaholism.
Right.
Yeah, not...
And walks in the pasture.
Yeah. Retreat from some of the regular drudgery so that you can do the irregular drudgery, which is the creative work. One of the things that I have been doing with my oldest son, who is doing some of his school work from home this year, in the mornings while he's working on his stuff, I kind of performatively do the research and the background work and the emails and the drudgery of the job that I have to do. I do it during that same time with him so that he can see that this, the perception of our lives, my wife and I's lives as people who make our living from the arts, as if it's easy and fun all the time and daffodils and inspiration, is in fact many hours of returning phone calls and boring emails and filling out forms and, going over contracts and just like so much drudgery. And you can't let it eat you all up. And when it's all done, you go do something else you want to do more. And he couldn't quite, I think, grasp at first how much time sometimes I spend putting into a composition. Like if I have a composition that I cannot crack, I will spend days and days and days, a few hours a day for days, drawing the shittiest versions of those compositions, just scratching them out, and then looking up how other people solve the same problem, and then scratching it out. And then I go to the bookshelf and I just pull a random book off of the shelf and just look through it for a little bit to just like break my concentration on this stupid problem that I can't get some outside influence that isn't the internet. And then come back to it a little bit renewed and then just work the problem again until I settle on a composition. And I know his feeling is, So all that work and this is this is what you come up with, like all that thinking and time. But all that thinking and time is the point, right? Like we have to spend so much thinking and time at our jobs, no matter what our job is, And when I was a teacher, I used to joke about how to my other friends, every job has marking. They'd complain about some part of the job, and I'd say every job has marking. So that's just what you have to do. There's just a part that no one wants to do, but is necessary to do. And despite the promises of your AI assistants doing it all for you, they can't. You'll have to do it yourself. The only thing they can do is the fun work. That's the only work the AI can take away now.
Do you think it's true that artists are working when it appears they're not doing anything?
Totally. Yeah, if they're working.
Right.
I had to switch studios early on. One of the reasons why I'm here is I was at a studio in a studio space where people took great joy in having studio spaces and telling their friends they were artists and having their friends come over and hang out in their artist space.
Pretty distracting.
Right. That's, and that's fine. That's their journey.
Right.
But and now, in interest of full disclosure, I like people.
You do have friends over here sometimes.
Yeah. I have people over here all the time. I also am a night owl. And one of the reasons I had to switch studios is because it was very easy to join the fun gathering instead of do the work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that they are less for doing fun gatherings. It's that I was less for participating so often in fun gatherings. Mm-hmm. And if I was going to build the career I wanted, I had to do the work. And Justin was a great, I didn't really know him that much except from show life, except to know that every time I saw him, there was new work, which means he did work hard. And so he reached out to me and said, I see you as someone who's always got new work. Maybe you need a studio space. And it was right at that perfect time when I was thinking, maybe I'm having too much fun here. It's great that there's a DJ here every night, but perhaps I should be writing my novel, So those kinds of things, to answer your question in the longest possible, most circuitous route, if you're doing nothing, it is part of the work, but you have to be doing nothing on purpose. Mm-hmm. It has to be, like I said, you're working the problem and you're like, I just need a break from the problem, so I'm just going to do nothing for 20 minutes, half an hour. But scrolling on the internet is something. Mm-hmm. So you're actually not taking a break if that's what you're doing. So I find tangible media to be the greatest escape from that.
That envelope is addressed to me.
Oh, well, if the envelope's addressed to you, take the envelope.
It's funny that you say that because I find that when I come to the studio, I don't expect to get any high brain work done.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
It's a lot. It's like
drudgery.
It's drudgery. It's drudgery. And it's like the physical part of the job, like for packing for shows, unpacking for shows, prepping orders, that kind of stuff. That's great. But I don't come here to with the idea that I'm going to get any part of my writing work.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, well, you're at a point on the timeline where the shape of our lives have changed from that time when we came and used this as the sacrosanct
workspace,
getting work done space. Now, Justin's responsibility as a dad and a husband and my responsibility as a dad and a husband change how the space functions for us. And the scope of the business has also changed how the space functions. And instead of creating the work, now the studio has taken on the shape of where we shepherd the work we've created.
Right. This is a business center now.
Right. And it's weird to think about that way. And it's why I like still coming here late at night when no one's around, or coming here early when no one's around, getting in a couple of hours in the space for, what you imagine it's for. But I was going through the archive. So my wife is creating this showroom space for her vintage collection. And as a result, a bunch of my for lack of a less pretentious way to say it, artist's archive of stuff can no longer be stored there. So I was moving it and adjusting it and moving it around. And one of my sons was saying, like, how come none of your comics pages are on this comic paper? Like, you have all this blank comic paper, like blue lined comic paper. And instead it's all in these sketchbooks, bound sketchbooks. And they were looking through it and they're like, this is how you made it? Like, this page I have labeled panel 1, and then this on the same page is panel 7, and then on the same page is like a panel 9, issue 2. All of these different pieces done separately. And I said, well, because art isn't the purpose of life, right? Life, in a way, becomes the purpose of art. It has to be portable. So none of this stuff that required me to sit on a big tilted Arctic drafting table was useful for the life I wanted to have, which was to be able to make it wherever I was when I had time to make it and a thought to make it. And so that is what happened. And I realized this studio is very much like that. Sometimes we come here and we do nothing but create. Sometimes we come here and we do nothing but sort banner stands.
But the difference that I want to point out,
There's an alert.
dear listener, if this is our last transmission,
This is a test of the Alert Ready National Public Alerting System issued by the Manitoba Emergency Management Organization. This is only a test.
Yeah.
No action is required. We're safe
we're safe.
for now.
As I was saying,
Yes.
for all of the things that the studio space is now, what it is not is a place of wheel spinning.
Right.
Which I think goes back to what you were talking about in your previous studio space. And I have heard horror stories before, as you find yourself in a group of creatives who love to talk about the act of making things without ever actually making things.
Yeah.
And that's not what this space or this creative community is.
Yeah. And talking about making things without making things is necessary for a time. I think that is an important part of the evolution, but there has to be a point in which you stop talking about the things you plan to do and start working the plan to do the thing.
Right. Yeah.
Or, and there's no harm in this either, decide you're not gonna and move on.
Right. But as someone who has always been someone who's actually making things, I can't imagine what my patience would be like amongst a group of people only talking about making things.
Yes, I do know what your patience would be like. See your group text about that one Discord you're in.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true.
Right. So, yeah, but then again, this comes back to that woman's perception of where you're supposed to be, right? Like, aren't you above this?
I think she just meant above sports.
I don't know if she did. No, I don't know if she did.
No.
But, and I'm only bringing you back around as a conversational device for the purpose of the podcast, is that it helps to reframe our conversation around how other people perceive what the job is versus what the job really is. And so that's why I keep bringing her up, although I can see her soulful, sad eyes looking at me.
You're like, no, damn it. No, I'm not above this. I'm not above anything.
That's right. We're not above it. And that's just it. There's a perception of where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Let's flip it around. That studio space I wanted to leave because it was artistically minded people having the greatest time of their lives. What's bad about it? There's nothing bad about it.
And you hated it.
Right? No, it was awesome. It was so fun. And we had the greatest time. And we would do all these collaborative painting pieces. And we organized events that I called collaboratory, where people from all walks of life could come and make art in that same feeling. I kept feeling like this little private club at that studio where everyone would come and should be more open to regular people. And we endeavored to do so. And for a few months, actually more than a few months, actually. God, I guess it was a long time. We did these events called collaboratory where anyone could come and participate in that kind of environment, whether you saw yourself as an artist or not. And the purpose was to make art for no reason, right? And so something you worked on might get painted over 10 minutes later. And that was the point of it. So, like, it was awesome. But at a certain there's only so much time. And there's a point in which if you want to have done a thing, you got to go do it. And I couldn't figure out a way to make those two environments work. And so the best thing for me to do was to switch environments, And they say that about a lot of things. If you're having trouble with anything, maybe it's the environment and not you or the other people. Just change where you're trying to accomplish it. It might work differently, I guess. And it might put you at a Grey Cup event for 4 days. Right? I don't really have the answers. But here's what I do know. There was a moment recently, and by recently I mean yesterday, where I really felt like I had, quote unquote, made it. And it was not a big lofty thing. Instead, it was, I was invited to be on a radio show on UMFM called Turning Pages. Michael at Turning Pages has this show where he interviews authors about their books, having read the entire book. And that may sound crazy or obvious to you, dear listener, but often interviewers have not read much more than an excerpt of the book most of the time. Mm-hmm. And so the idea that, what I often do when I'm doing an interview is I will, kind of like I'm doing on the podcast here, I'll have my little notes scratched out about what I'm going to say. And there's 5 or 10 questions I always get asked. And I remind myself on the little note paper that it's okay and that you can have fun with that question again. And I try to write something that is a little bit different than the last time I gave the same answer. Mm-hmm. Just try to evolve it a bit because I can anticipate 10 questions about that book that people will get from the cover, the back blurb, and a brief excerpt that they've read. And so I can anticipate and have a pretty good interview conversation. What a delight it was to have an interview where not a single prepared question or answer, rather, was appropriate. Every question was a question I hadn't been asked before.
Nice.
They were all based on a insightful reading of the work itself and the kind of questions that could only be answered by the author of the work. And it was so amazing. I actually, for the first time in a long time, felt authentically like a writer.
I can't wait for the level up in interviews on Super Pulp Science going forward from your experience.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is people have to be willing. So the thing about Turning Pages is I knew that going in, right? I'd been told that going in, I should say. And I didn't believe it until I had listened to 3 or 4 of the episodes and said, oh, wow, he's going to roll up his sleeves. But just in case he doesn't, I better be prepared. And then after we were done rolling, I don't think Michael would be upset that I shared this. I gushed about how wonderful it was to have a conversation with someone who read the book. And he was shocked. He was like, what do you mean they don't read them? He's like, why would you have a show interviewing authors if you haven't read the thing? Yeah. But you're shrugging from a media point of view.
Yeah, it's for the morning shows who have 1 million authors on every day. They don't have time to read them all.
You can't.
For the late night talk shows that do the same thing, they're just going to read to get a sense of what it is. Although they will often say they've read it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I read this. Oh sure you did.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Although I appreciate every now and then, if you're watching The Daily Show, the interview, it's a new host all the time, but they'll say, I actually read this one. Like they use the word actually as a qualifier so that person knows. I really did read it this time.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how the game is played. So how do you know where you're supposed to be? When you feel that feeling that you imagined yourself that way. I always wanted to be a person who could talk about the rationale under the work that resulted in the work in a way that made sense, both to me and I hope to the listener, because I always admired people who could do that. And when I was from very young, I would just be like, wow, that just seems like magic. How could you have all that going on in your head at the same time? And now I know the answer is drudgery. You have to be willing to have done it. And
in fact, when we get off of this recording, I'm going to go back to drudgery.
That's right.
This is the bright spot of no drudgery in my day.
Drudgery coming too. One thing they say you hear a lot is you have to be willing, if you're writing a story, you have to be, if you want to make it good, or you want to make it publishable, I guess better than good is a better qualifier. You have to be willing to read it 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be willing to rewrite it maybe 20 times in order to get at it the right way. And so that's the drudgery that I'm talking about, dear listener, is the notion that, yeah, I wrote a story. Writing a story, that's step one. Rewriting the story a bunch of times is step two. And to a lot of people, the notion of rereading the same thing they have written over and over and over again, that sounds like hell on earth. It is. Don't do this. You won't like it. Right? The same way that showing up for a morning practice over and over and over again to learn how to throw a long bomb, to me, that sounds like hell on earth, right? That's their art. I have a different art to chase. And so that's how you get from here to there, I would say, dear listener.
Mm-hmm.
Should we wrap it up?
Yes.
Bring it home.
Bring it. Leave out me asking,
Yeah.
but leave in him saying, bring it home.
Okay.
So, dear listener, wherever you find yourself on your artistic journey, on your journey as a writer or an illustrator or as a creative person, you're not above any of it. It's going to take you to a lot of strange places. People are going to see in you things about your work that you can't see. Believe them. They really see it. It's true. And you should trust the people who you have surrounded yourself with, who have proven to be that level-headed about something that you have a real hard time being level-headed about, because it's precious to you, it's important to you, it's your work. This is GMB Kamichuk, encouraging you all to join the fight and make comics.